right, 6 o'clock. Call the meeting of the Charter Review Commission to order. Thank you everybody for being here. Do you have the minutes that you sent out? Or do you send them to me and I was supposed to send them out?
I replied all to everybody.
Okay. I don't know if anybody has any notes on them. I mean, it was a very quick open shut meeting, so unless anybody has a note, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
He wasn't here, so he can't second.
All right, that's right. Well, technically 3 of us weren't here, so.
I can second, right, even though I took
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Just to talk about our timeline, because in December we weren't able to have a full meeting, and then as we started to look at things in January and as the warrant opened, it became clear there's still a lot of work to do, basically. And with the warrant closing last week, we just weren't able to get our package finalized to the point where we could start to put it together. There was more unanswered questions than I think I realized going through it the first time. So it looks at this point, it won't be up for discussion at town meeting this year. There's a chance it could be brought up at a special town meeting in the fall, or if people have strong feelings against doing that, it'll be next annual town meeting, which is still within the timeline allowed under the charter.
I'm thinking the one in the fall is going to be concerned with the fire department's building, so I don't know if that would be the right time.
It would be the right time only because you might get a good crowd.
It was less on the agenda. It's one big thing, but it's less.
So I think our goal should be just continue to move as swiftly as we can, thoughtfully as we can as well. And if we're ready for the fall, we can have that discussion then. If not, then we can cruise into the town meeting next year. If there's anybody who can't commit for the next cycle, the next year, I would fully understand that. I was really hoping we could get this done early, but just didn't work out that way. So let me know if you're not able to continue the work and we can find someone else. And this is kind of a good natural breaking point probably. Because I think we're moving now from research and background and ideation to review and voting. So don't need an answer right now, but if anybody decides that this isn't what they need to spend the next 12 months on, let me know. Any questions, thoughts? All right. With us is the illustrious Michael Franey. Mike, why don't you pull up a seat here? And Mike is joining us as in his role as Charter Review Commission Emeritus, working on the 2004 Charter Review. We were in the 2014 as well?
No.
No.
How that beat me up bad enough.
Yeah, it was. So the 2004 one was, do you know everybody, I don't know if you've met Amanda though.
Will Adams.
I've met you before.
Yeah. Jay Condon's son-in-law.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And this is Amanda Hardigan. She's our 5th member.
Yes, you're doing.
She's a
Nice to meet
new,
you.
Listen, you look much better than these two, that's for sure.
she's a new mom, so she's staying away from
Okay?
us rabble. The 2004 charter was memorable because it brought in a strong town manager. Was the biggest change, right?
Right.
Right. Okay.
If I just might give you, prior to, I was the moderator at the time, and it's every 10 years, I think, you review the thing. So at the time, we had big problems in town, finances. There was an elected treasurer, and he was disjointed. Every year, I don't know why we don't do it now, but, we were required to have a financial audit. I think it was Sullivan and Sullivan, not Morgan and Morgan. But so every year that they gave that, it was under duress. And don't hold me to this, but I think our stabilization fund had like $500,000. dangerously close.
Yeah.
As did the reserve fund, had very little money. So I heard Rick give the spiel. I called up, asked some people, and it was a very diverse group. And I said, oh, we'll probably be done in 5 or 6 meetings. Over 40 meetings we had. And ultimately went to primarily what we thought was the right thing, because what had happened at the time, and I can't fault anybody for this because a good department head is going to fight for his thing. So we'd have a town meeting, and if there was any money left over that might go in a stabilization fund or anything like that, somebody would get up and ask for that money, the police, the fire, the schools. And from that point on, the floodgates were open. And as a result, it wasn't good. It wasn't good financially. So we decided to go with the town manager. Now, at that time, we talked to every department head. We had 2 or 3 open public meetings. At the time, we were advised that there was 2 ways you could do it. You could do it on the ballot in town, and you could also do it, it had to be done in the legislature anyways. But we were advised to do both, which we did. So we had a special town meeting just for changing the charter to go from, town administrator, I think it was at the time, and so we had, it was down at junior high. It passed it was like 198 to 8. It was overwhelming. And then it went to ballot, and again, it passed on the ballot. Now, a couple things that didn't go right for us. We had proposed taking what was an assistant town manager position at that time. We were going to take the funding that person was being paid, and take that extra money and put it towards the town manager. But what happened was that never happened, because when the person who was ultimately chosen to be town manager came in and reappointed that person back to assistant town manager, so effectively we didn't have that. So from that point on, the town manager was in charge of the financial offices, which was the assessor, the treasurer. The treasurer now became appointed. He is a town accountant, and I don't know who else, it was like 3 or 4 of them. The ability for the town manager to take a department head and discuss their budget, and they did this again in front of the finance committee. You didn't have that town officer going up and asking for money at town meeting, because he was under the jurisdiction of And in my opinion, it worked out quite well. I think that right now, I don't know what we have exactly in the stabilization fund, but when the free cash comes back, we had a formula that so much money went into capitalization and then the stabilization and a couple other things. So I don't know. I did see one thing. I see. I just make a comment now. I apologize. I'm always all over the place. But if you were to ask the town what they wanted, if they wanted to make a change, you would almost have to educate them instead of asking them what their opinion is, because it's all, you're almost, what is the advantage of having a mayor or going back to the board of selectmen or what, because there's a lot of different opinions out there. So in that regards, it's, there's some good things coming out of when we had the town managers, and we keep, I think as we go on, we can only get better with selection. Obviously, the first couple we had, it was a feeling process for us and them. And, right now, like, for instance, the rubbish, that was John D'Agasio's idea. And it's like crazy to get that in. And I use the same thing for smoking. In this town, you'd almost say, oh, you're going to ban smoking, you're going to put all the bar rooms out of business. Well, go in and light up a cigarette in any place now, and you're going to, same thing with your rubbish. Say, oh, we'll go back to the old way. Put the bags out there, and it saved a lot of money, because the rubbish is no longer going in wet, and people weren't dropping their rubbish brush off on our side streets, but just for instance, there has been some bad things, negative things that it hasn't worked out quite the way we wanted, but it's the way it is, so. I don't know if that answers any question, but I can't emphasize enough, but I personally thought going from where we were to where we are now was a big step for the town. And, it's the other thing we looked at too is the legality of now. You just can't take like a board of selectmen and have them understand all the legal issues that face the town. And so, you got the town manager's requirements, with education and stuff like that, are so much in service. It's really important that we don't get hoodwinked into something because we didn't understand the law. So, having said that, I do think it was the right move. Now, you guys probably don't agree with that, but that's okay too.
So, I sent around to everybody a copy of a report from the Mass Department of Revenue from 2002, which was one of the financial reviews. And I encourage everybody to read it because it is scathing. I mean, I wasn't
Oh, it
originally
was,
in this town.
it was.
You read this, I'm like, is this the same town? Because for a decade, apparently, just
It was.
no financial
year was
controls
this.
and couldn't find money and couldn't make you balance the books, and it was just,
Well, at one point, I think, it's a long time, I don't want to misspeak, but I think it was $200,000 that they couldn't find.
Yeah.
They said it wasn't stolen, but they couldn't find it in the auditor's report.
Yeah.
And then there was talk at the time of doing a forensics review, and the town was in such dire straits financially, it wasn't the right thing to do because we were laying off people and it was discombobulated. But since, in the last few years, I was thinking on the way up here, we haven't had any big layoff issues. But, we used to come down, we're gonna lay off 2 firefighters, 2 cops, 10 teachers and stuff. It's, that aspect of it has worked out quite well. But were you able to see how much money was in stabilization in that?
I can take a look at it again, but I know it was pretty low, and then in 09, 10, we also got like very low, like $100,000 low. Like it was.
Oh, no,
Scraping pennies together.
Yeah.
We were doing layoffs in '08, yeah.
Yeah, 09, 010, I think was the last big round of layoffs we did.
Yeah.
That was a lot of DPW. That was someone else. Did fire lose somebody?
We were lucky enough to have some retirements. Station was closed,
Right,
I think, the second time in my history.
yeah.
So we were able to make some operational adjustments to cover that, but we've thankfully recovered since then.
But we're now going on 13 years, knock on wood,
Absolutely.
pretty
Right.
stable.
And no department slowing down.
No, it has been been a good little town. Say what you want about Abington, but the people always come together and we seem to get it done. We might fight like cats and dogs, but.
So a couple quick questions, I think, on our end that we've had.
You
looking
got me
back
from
to this.
Rick.
Yeah, right, we'll be here for a while. So the one issue I think that kind of jumps out at us right now is the difference between the police and fire chief qualifications. I think fire is civil service, police chief is not.
Correct.
Fire is a 5-year contract, and police is, no, there's no time set.
Right.
Do you know why it was set differently?
I know.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I know the fire chief was civil service. Are you sure it's 5 years? I thought that was
I thought it was 3 because I thought that was a
Okay.
state law.
but it's still
Okay.
civil service. Takes
Yeah.
a lot to get, not to get rid of them, so to
Yeah.
speak, but. And the police chief, pretty much to surrounding towns, I know it's a lifetime appointment. I don't know. I think the last charter review committee actually put the town manager up for 5 years because it's tough to get anybody to serve for 3. And I almost think that the same thing would apply for a police chief. Politics is in every single town, and you get the right group of people, they're gonna take over and, they could, to not do the right thing. But I mean, again, your decision, it's certainly not bad to look at it. But I think it was because, well, number one, it was in, it's the way it was. It was appointment. And,
And usually those appointments historically have stayed intact, and then the contract cycle, whether it's in the charter or not, for a 5-year term, if you
Right,
will,
right.
they still need to negotiate a contract, and they typically don't move out of there unless there's a need to remove somebody.
Exactly. Well, you got the town manager with just cause.
Right.
Can always
Right.
remove really anybody,
Absolutely.
you know. But I don't really have, we did discuss that, but it was so far ago. It wasn't, the more pressing for that particular committee was the financial aspect. And,
Did you, like, avoid other things so they wouldn't be roadblocks to get the big thing through, do you think?
You know,
Like
we
smaller.
actually talked to every department head, anybody that wanted to give it, we'd give them a good, and we had public hearings. No, we didn't take anybody out of it, you know, it was, I think the people more or less do. And sadly, when I see you guys are looking at town meeting, I have mixed feelings about going to a elected stuff, because everybody says, well, special interests gets with it, but you are not going to change that. That's our system. And you know, no matter where you go, whether it be the Congress, whatever, a special interest is usually always going to get it. But you could have, I think the biggest thing this town does is the override. That's what's important. And it would be a shame if people couldn't speak their piece on the override, whether you had a, you know. And you'll also see that town meeting is a different, totally different. Town meeting, in my opinion, they lead with their heart, the ballot box leads with their head. So, whatever, at this stage of my life, it doesn't affect me like this young man here.
Amanda, do you have, I've got you eating, I'm sorry. Do you have anything that's popping to your head right away?
No, sorry, I'm just more listening, but thank you.
What are you eating?
Animal crackers.
All right.
Dinner of champions.
Thank you for
So we had done a survey, and we had about whether people wanted a mayor, town meeting, whatever.
Right.
And we were surprised by the number of people that came back and said they were interested in having a mayor.
Okay.
Or selectmen.
Yeah. So we had Ted Langell come in, who is the chief of staff for the mayor of Weymouth.
Yep.
And he was involved also in the transition of government in Braintree when that town switched. And I thought he gave some really good notes on why towns make that decision. Braintree, for instance, was they had an executive secretary still. They were like Abington in, 1996 still. And so there was a fundamental structural problem, just the town's so big, you can't do it with an executive secretary. But he said, if you don't have the right people in place, the problems aren't going to go away.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think it kind of made us feel like we don't need to take a drastic step like that at this point. We're weighing the idea, and I think this is something that Pete is interested in, is doing a larger referendum at some point, because the sample size was a couple hundred people, 150 people.
Right.
But, is it worth taking a larger referendum in a couple of years and seeing if that changes and if this is something that should have a larger look?
Can I ask you a question? I don't mean to age you here, but back when you were doing all this, how many people came to the town meeting?
It depended on what was on
But on a normal town meeting with no big issue?
We had, I think at the time, we had a quorum of 225
You would get that, right?
on the first night.
Right.
On the first night. And then if you were at the mercy of calling people and stuff at the end of it, no doubt you wanted to get all your pieces having to do with the town budget so that the town budget could move forward on July 1st.
Because my major concern is you have a town, depending on who you ask, because the state will use different population figures for the town. I find that interesting. But at any rate, like 18 to 20,000 people, in the last one, 83 people showed up.
Right.
And I find that 83 people controlling that.
Peter, made motions to go to zero. I never thought I'd say that, but I did, because I wished I had back all the time I spent at the back of that hall with other people making phone calls to try to get something.
Right.
And it does seem to be a shame, but I don't really know. I would say to reduce the quorum to something that you would guarantee 50 or something like that, where you would guarantee that you'd be able to start the town meeting and get it over with.
But my point is, if you had either a mayoral or a selectman representative government, it wouldn't, you would have a general election for whomever you're, whatever system you're doing. And I believe you'd have a much bigger turnout.
I mean, I don't know. The selectmen didn't work. Let me just tell you that.
Were they from each precinct at the time?
No.
See, I think if you had individuals from each precinct and two at large, then you would get a different interest in that. Because where I live, the thinking is nobody up here cares. Just so you know.
And to a certain degree, I agree with that philosophy to a certain degree of having 7, 8 people involved that advises the town manager. But at the same time, the root of this problem is getting people out of their houses into a meeting. And the only way those 8 people are going to understand what the group wants is they're going to have to be before those people. You know what I'm saying?
When years ago, you were obligated to go to town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go, you know, so I often thought, what could you do? You know what? I'm not recommending this, and I'm probably going to get killed, but you could put a hold on youth sports that night. Because if you're a parent and you have to make a decision whether to go to a town meeting, it's very important.
And that's what happens.
And that's what happens. And you know, you're going to make the decision to go.
Take the kids to soccer.
The
Yeah.
soccer game or the ballet or whatever.
I know Parks and Rec is advocating to close town fields on town meeting day.
Yeah, and you could also ask the school committee to, we can't, this government can't tell the school what to do, but you could ask them what to do. It seems a shame that it's come to that, Peter. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The other big difference I've seen in town meeting, though, it's very complicated. The average person sitting there doesn't understand, especially when it comes to zoning and articles and stuff like that. You just say, you know, get me out of here. I don't want to listen to this baloney. And you know, but it's important to have that on the books and the bylaws of the town. That's a question I don't want to try to resolve. I just,
That's fine.
you know, I mean, you might ask Sean if he had a good idea. Sean does a good idea, a good job, you know, streamlining it, and bringing it forward and explaining it well. But it has throughout the years become more and more and more complicated. Yeah, but it is, so.
Let me change the topic a little bit.
Sure.
Town manager qualifications is something else we've taken a look at. The current law requires a college degree and then some professional achievements as well. When we hired the current town manager, and there's 2 of us here who are on that hiring committee or the recommendation committee, we recommended Scott happily and somehow missed the fact that he didn't have a college degree at the time. He since completed it and he's met all the qualifications, but they had to make him acting or interim, or there was some term they had to do. But it made us realize that, you know, there might be a situation where you have somebody who has 20 years professional municipal experience, 10 years leading departments, they have all the credentials, they just don't have a college degree. So the question is, should we make that something that's in the charter, or should that be something that the Board of Selectmen at the time should decide is important?
I would probably say the Board of Selectmen. Although, you know what, you don't want to fool around with it. I'd have to mull that over a little bit more to give you what the college degree is important, but we all know here, we had teachers in school that had a regular BA. We had teachers in school that had a doctorate. That person with the BA could get through to the teachers and the staff. And I think the whole thing would hold true for a person with the right qualifications. It's just that you start, well, you got to either or in there, right?
It was just, you have to have one. It was period. So I think we're looking at going, you should have one, but if you don't, then you need to have significant professional career experience.
You're gonna have to go to a town meeting anyways. Make the argument that, you know, there's a good argument, I think, on either side of it.
Yeah.
And let the people decide. It's, you know, you've got some good ideas to mull over anyways.
Scott's proven to be as capable a town manager as somebody who's
Certainly
had a
has.
master's degree in public policy, so.
Yeah, he certainly has. And everything right now seems to be going pretty good. I'd love to know how much money we actually had in the stabilization.
This is bugging you, huh?
It is, it truly, because I honestly, everything is well intended. We had the Moss School threatened to close, and they in order to keep it open, they needed $500,000, which they took from the stabilization fund. Were they wrong? No. The school committee's supposed to get up and fight for the kids and stuff, but in the financial aspect of the town, we closed it the next year.
Mhm.
So some of those things might be resolved, or should have been resolved before going in there, but I don't know, don't get me going.
Well, and those were also years that we didn't have a very active planning person. You know, we weren't making those proactive moves to build the town and have a foreseeable plan for the future. It was,
We did it.
we were so broke, it was just pay as you go and hope it
Well,
hit the right
you know,
thing.
what was really a mess was the retirement. The retirement for the town employees. When I first was on there, I think it was $45 million the town was in debt to unfunded liability. I'll give you an example, not a problem. We have, I think, 4 retired fire chiefs living in town right now. And the way the system works for the municipal employees is they are paid, correct me if I'm wrong, for the highest 3 years?
3 years.
3 years. So they could be a private, making whatever money. And then take the test, pass the test, become police fire chief for 3 years, retire, and get 3/4 of what the fire chief was being paid. You know what I mean? So those types of things, the town or the board of selectmen at the time, they just, you know, well, we'll just take care of everybody by giving them a real good retirement. Well, it wasn't paid for. It is being paid down now. They just changed the formula where, in my opinion, before it was unfair to the town, now it's unfair to the employee. They take so much money out of you guys.
Well, I think the town doesn't necessarily contribute to our pension.
Right.
They don't contribute at all. They're just the custodians of the money.
Right.
Which is where that 45 million or whatever it was at the time was an unfunded liability because they simply didn't put it away.
No.
Because they were spending it all. So that's the rub when everybody says, you know, about their retirements. Our retirements are managed by our own company, and it's just like it would be another 401k or something that the money's taken out, but the town's a custodian until it goes to Plymouth County. So
And then the other thing they always say, well, why don't they go on Social Security? Social Security would cost the town.
Yep.
If all the town employees were on it, because the town would have to pay, I think it's 6 or 7%.
we are one of the only, well, the Social Security would come out of our check as well, but we're one of the only states, I think there's 3 now in the country, that if you are in a pension system, you're not in Social Security.
Right.
So all the years that I've worked from 14 till I got on the job, all that money, I still got a statement from them, but I'm gonna get 50% on the dollar for all that time that I've worked. And if you continue to work now, you'll get a little bit if you're working a job that actually takes out Social Security.
But employers, they would have to match the 6%.
Right.
And the 6% is greater than what they're currently paying into the pension fund right now. So it would go into Social Security, actually cost the town.
My understanding is they're not matching money in our pension though. The money that's coming out of our
No,
percentage
I
is
think
just
it's all
money
up
comes
to you
right in.
guys, yeah.
Right.
And I think last time I read, and again, don't hold me to this, but I think it's around 11%.
It is 11%,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
We've got, I think, 2 people that are on the 9% system.
Yeah.
But the pension system goes up.
And it used to be 5, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
We had briefly talked about this on the phone. There's a request to change some of the language around the library. specifically stating that the library director has day-to-day oversight of the library employees. And you mentioned something to me about how that was structured regarding the personnel. Do you want to?
Yeah, we were afraid of Mr. DeCarlo.
Okay.
No, we did have a discussion about that. And the original proposal was for the town manager to appoint the librarian. And it came down to the way I think it was left, it's like a joint appointment.
I think the word was consultation.
Yeah. And, I mean, I don't know, the library really does an outstanding job. But, I never really realized how much they do until my grandkids started going over there. And they it's a great asset to the town. So, but I don't know, you had a couple people that recommended it.
So Henry came in with the director, and their concern is that they said the town managers generally let Deborah Grimmett run the library.
Right.
That they haven't been very hands-on.
Right.
But the way the language is written is that a couple of departments that have, the charter says specifically the superintendent's in charge of the school employees. And I think the housing authority is in charge of the housing authority employees or something like that. But then it said the library, but not the library employees. So it was a little bit of a.
Yeah, I'm not sure, like the town manager is what we used to have, I think, a personnel board.
Yep.
And now he's kind of in charge of that, so this is a weird society we have. You could have sexual harassment or something coming up. Who would handle that at that point in time? I think it would probably fall on the shoulders of the town manager.
Yeah, he's the head personnel.
So that's the only kickback I would say. The other thing too, from my memory, we were by state law, you guys are able to get, I think it's $5,000 for, to help you through the process. And you're also able to use town, the lawyers from the town, if you have any questions. Stuff. You would be wise to have them review any changes, because they were really good with us and advised us, what to do and how to do it.
I think we had already discussed that, didn't we? That whatever changes before goes to the town will go to
Yep,
the attorneys.
100%.
Yeah. And then the one other thing I might make a comment on is some of the things you want to make changes on, they might be in place already under the selectmen's policies or whatever. For instance, was the requirement to have certain tests and stuff done. I think primarily with the finance committee. But a lot of those things are in place. You have to take an ethics, unless they change it, you have to, it's silly. Because you can't make a mistake. You can just sit there and push buttons all day and you'll finally get it right.
No, it's changed.
Has it changed? Okay,
Yes.
but that's the way it was, Peter.
Yeah, I know, I've been through the changes, so.
Yeah, I would think from a standpoint of how far do you go with telling somebody, well, you gotta go to this class and that class. And the other thing that our town council, I believe in the proposal, will come down and do a seminar on the open meeting law. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's been utilized for quite a while.
Scott, the town manager's done that. Every year he's done.
Okay, good. That's nice to
Not,
hear.
yeah, but not everybody attends it. So.
No, yeah. But we had an instance where Abington was the number one attorney general. Whoever gets turned in, we were turned in for everything. There was somebody out there that had an axe to grind, and they said Peter Waters was sleeping at the meeting. I want to report on him.
What? I was asleep, sorry.
To go back to stabilization real quick, according to the state, in for fiscal 2002, it was 46,000.
Okay.
And then for the next 2 years, it was 50,000 for
Okay.
stabilization. So,
Well, here's the thing though, I just found that too.
okay.
For 2 years in a row, we didn't get our free cash certified because the books were such a mess that they couldn't certify our free cash number.
Right. It was definitely some problems with
And 2010, the balance was $1,800.
Okay,
I mean, that
now
is
it's
just-
3.2 million.
Well, yeah, and it's supposed to be more.
Right.
It's supposed to be something like 10% of your operating budget, so,
Yeah, right, it's 5.8.
yeah, so it's got a ways to go. Certainly not, we saw what happened with the truck that time,
Right.
and it's just something that, it's good financial management. We also, just so you know, too, primarily John D'Agostino got a lot of this going, and at the time, we put an account on for OPEB benefits. We put money aside, it was part of the formula. When the school went out to bid, Moody's, whoever gave the recommendation, recognized that the town is fiscally responsible, it's paying off X amount on the thing, and it has a retirement looking forward to that, and gave us a better bond rating. So for what it was worth, it paid off. So,
Yeah, at some point, yeah.
so
We're getting there.
you are. I salute your efforts. It's kind of one other thing too. A lot of times people are serving and they don't know what's in the charter or the bylaw.
Well, you're hitting all the good ones.
No,
All the good, no, we're just, no, yeah.
Honestly,
Keep going.
you just, we put together a volunteer handbook, which had some information on what's the position of the chair, open meeting law violations and stuff. I don't know that people almost want to make it a recommendation that they had to either go to a website that had these through the town, not have to go on the town clerks and search and stuff like that. I was given a copy when I first ran for board. I was given a copy of the bylaw and the charter. And I don't think any of that is done now.
That's only popped up last year. The fact that we had members coming up on boards without essentially getting the bylaws or the rules of the board. And so one of the things we have in this package is basically an onboarding process for committee members. So you get appointed, you get elected to a committee, you're going to get the town charter, you're going to get your open meeting law training, your ethics training, you're going to get whatever bylaws are, related to your committee. And the committee itself will have a kind of like an annual training, professional development plan.
Yeah.
So that, every year, every 2 years, you're doing something to help further your understanding of the board that you're sitting on.
Absolutely.
Because what we're finding is just the people getting on boards and just, there was no development, no committee meetings, no
Right.
training. They barely had their bylaws. It was just kind of.
Now, having said that, Rick, I think you got to be careful you don't make it too hard on them.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
I was about to say, if you go to the library and look at the minutes of the committees, a lot of them are in violation.
oh, Peter,
And-
look at the process you have to do on some of these things by the state law. It's ridiculous. I mean,
Right.
But anyways, and then one other comment too about paying the Board of Selectmen. I would be for that, as long as it's retroactive.
How many
No.
years, huh?
Yeah, no, the problem you had with that, and the reason it was taken out, is if you paid somebody, they were eligible for the town's insurance.
Right.
So if you did do that, you'd have to get them to pass a law that would eliminate that part of it. So
And that would be a state law, though, right?
the state would have to look into it.
Couldn't do it as an independent contractor kind of a thing.
I don't want to answer that.
Okay, that's fine.
All I know is that's why they were taken out of it, and, there's all kinds of things that came from that. People got time and grade for being on the Board of Selectmen. Then they went and got a job at the jail for 3 years. And then they were eligible with the time and grade that they served in the town. And the fact that they were paid for whatever they made from the jail, registry of deeds, wherever, they got 80% of that after 3 years. So it was, little things you're not aware of. But a lot of people did that. Yeah.
Spend 15 years on the Board of Selectmen or Parks and Rec and then go
As
get
long
a
as
top
you were
3.
paid.
Yep,
As long as you were paid.
yep. And then you go to the, yeah, you're right, go get a job for 3 years and retire and you got a full pension.
I don't think I'd want 3 years in the corrections facility, though, 3
He
years.
did have you in the
On the
south.
tail end, no, I'm all set with that, but
Yeah.
Mike, one more question for you, at least on my end. Do you have any thoughts about term limits?
No, I actually don't think there should be term limits. I think the people of this town are always, sometimes you're skeptical, they are always, I think they're in the ballot. When you're at town meeting, sometimes you say, what are we doing? And then it goes to ballot and gets smushed. But I don't know, Rick, I guess it's hard enough to get people to serve. And I don't want to say, like when we did the employees handbook there, we said that if 2 people are going for the same position and one has been appointed multiple times, let the other person go as long as the experience is close. So kind of change it, but it's never happened. Because you don't get, everybody would say, oh, I mean, you guys here, you've been on a lot of different boards and stuff, but you know as well as I do that sometimes you're like, I've said that to people. They come up and voice their opinion strongly. Why don't you go on the finance committee? Why don't you do this?
Yeah.
I don't have time. No busy people make time. It's sad, but no, I would say, yeah, I would definitely not be in favor of that. But
Amanda, anything pop in your head, or are you good? You're good? All right. Anyone else here with questions? And we all know where he lives, so we can always go knock on his door if we have questions.
listen, if I could, Andy or whatever, if you want a couple that's still around town that were on that original committee, I'm sure we'd be happy to come in and answer any questions because they recognize what you guys are doing.
We're going to track down Andy for the next meeting,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Do the same thing.
How many people came to your public meetings? How many people came to your public meetings that you might have had?
It would depend on what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Like the library, there was people
Right.
that came, different things like that. And other
I might have been on that board.
Usually it was just the department heads.
Yeah.
That would talk about it. But it was good because you didn't have the camera, so you could talk a little more openly.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And but no, it was a good, open, honest, and frank discussion. And I think that anybody that went to the town meeting or anybody that was involved with this going forward would say that their voice was heard, their voice was, and it was only, I'm pretty sure it was only 8 people that didn't want this to win. And I'd love to go back in time and say, what are you thinking now?
Right.
So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for coming by.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
You're more than welcome, and I appreciate you guys' efforts doing that. But I'm going to vote against everything you propose.
just so there's a good discussion, right?
It was, thank you guys. And girls, sorry I had my back to you. That's the way he told me to sit, though.
It is Rick's fault. Thank you.
It is.
Do you need a minute to talk about doing straight, or are you going to be okay?
We'll see.
Breaking news. All right.
I think I missed that then.
Garnet Hathaway, the cops.
But who?
Craig Smith, and a couple pictures.
I'm okay with that.
And Dimitri Orlov.
I have no
Okay.
idea what they're talking about.
That's good stuff then.
Which sport?
Hockey.
Okay, that's why I don't know.
All right. Let's. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, if you guys are on board with this, is I'd like to go through some of the things where we're either kind of made a decision or feel strongly about one thing, and either vote to either continue with or push off, or basically start to thin out the herd, because there's some of this stuff where we don't need to be tracking anymore, I think. So I I guess what I'd ask the board is to vote, and I don't think this is anything wrong doing it this way, but tell me if I'm wrong, just to say, continue or lay on the table. Basically, we're not going to talk about it anymore. We won't delete it off the paper, but we're
Sure.
just going to say
That's fine.
de-emphasize, basically. All right. Form of government change. I think we still have, I don't think we're going to do a big change, but maybe we still want to do a little tweaks with town meeting, or at least chat about it some more, or are we pretty much convinced that we're kind of good at this point, we don't need to talk about it?
Well, my only question is, you had sponsor non-binding referendum on the 2028.
Mm-hmm.
Why 28?
I think it was 5 years out. It was halfway to the next one. We can continue that. We can,
That's the only question. No.
conferring charter powers, this is just some cleaning up some language that I want to ask town council about. This is the 1.4 section. It's okay, continue with that one. Definition review, this affects sections 1.4 and 4.6. It was about what a qualified administrative officer is and not admitting of delay. I think the question is, we don't know what those terms mean in terms of the impact, so I think we'll need to reach out to town council to figure out that. So we'll continue with that. Open versus representative town meeting.
Is that also under the form of government?
This is 2.1. So one is the form of government, and section 2 is town meeting, the legislative branch, basically. So, do we want to continue discussions with that, or are we ready to lay that aside, or? Okay. Any? All right. Annual training, I think we definitely feel like there's needs for changes there, so we'll continue with that one. Moderator absence or disability, I think we want to continue to follow that one up. Public involvement during meetings.
Yes.
Yep. Sewer commission. We haven't spent much time talking about this. Do we want to continue this and pursue it in terms of having it appointed versus elected? Currently, it's elected. I don't know if it needs to change. I don't know if it needs not to change. Sewer projects are done. Should the board of selectmen become the sewer commissioners? Because I think what they do basically is, when they go over the rates, and they set the rates. They also approve drain layers and, general status updates. Is that enough to have a separate board?
I don't understand why that wouldn't be following under the DPW and that realm of handling that stuff,
All right, so I'll say continue this just because we want to have a further conversation. We probably want to invite them in specifically just to see what we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
Changing, this is section 3.2 as well as plenty of other places, changing selectmen to select board to make it more inclusive. Continue that. Continue on with that one. Library director appointment, which we mentioned earlier this evening. We'll continue discussing that one. Planning board terms. So right now it's 5 members, each elected to terms of 5 years each. That's kind of what's the default in state law, but they also allow towns to tweak if they so desire. Do you think there's a need to tweak, or are you happy with there being 5 members? Do you want to go to 3-year terms?
Was this the conversation also around auxiliary members?
That's a different one.
Different, okay, sorry.
So for instance, conservation has more members, zoning has fewer members. I think planning board is one of the only boards elected for 5-year terms. I think everybody else is 3-year terms. But again, that's kind of how it was set up by the MGLs. So if you want to continue a chat or think about it and discuss in the future, that's fine.
I think that's something we should continue to talk about because we also want to outline the roles of those associate or auxiliary members and come up with some parity across these boards to make it easier,
Okay. Committee appointment process, I think we're starting to finalize some language around that, so we'll continue talking about that. Committee vacancy appointments, same thing, same brother. Town manager qualifications. This is again adding the language that gives a little bit of flexibility if you have a particularly distinguished career. Continue discussing that. Town manager activities. So the current language is the town manager shall devote full time to the duties of the office and shall not hold any other elective or appointive town office, nor shall the town manager engage in any business unless such action shall be approved in advance in writing by the Board of Selectmen. I guess the question is, do we feel that should be changed at all, or?
I think it's something that should be further discussed. If you have a town manager that's certainly capable, but is also running a business on the side, and may have had that business prior to getting the position or whatnot, I think it's selfish of the town to make them choose one or the other.
So, I mean, it could be as simple as they trade baseball cards on eBay.
Right.
Or they're on the board of directors for Little League in their town.
Right.
I mean, I would hope Board of Selectmen wouldn't deny that, but I don't know. Library personnel, this is again what we're talking about. Is that different from the previous one? Oh, the appointment process, the director appointment process, okay. So we'll continue talking about that. There have been a mention about a strong town manager versus a weak town manager. But I think at this point, I don't think we're expecting any major changes in that language, so it's okay. I'm going to say we'll table further discussion. Amanda, all set with that?
Was that the first one to be tabled?
Yes.
Okay.
We're coming to a lot more.
Okay.
Town manager duties. This was, I think one idea was to just put language in there that they're responsible for enforcing the town charter. Because we had something a little bit later as well about enforcement that Amanda had come up with. That it was a combination of town administrator or other officials. It's really kind of squishy about who enforces the town charter. So I don't know if you want to include that into his or her official duties, or
That might be an easy place to put it.
all right. Police chief, civil service. Currently, police chief is not civil service.
Correct.
Do we feel a need to change that, or are we good with using?
I'm good leaving it.
I'm good with that.
Because I helped go through the process, and it was a really good process.
So we'll table that, and we'll bring it up in the future. Good.
Yeah, I mean, what people need to understand is civil service is just a testing facility warehouse, if you will. So by them not having him in civil service, that means there's gonna have to be a process in place, which, where we don't have an HR department, makes it a little bit more difficult, but to vet people properly for that position. And that's, I think, the majority of the reason why most towns try to hold on to civil service, but civil service also comes with its own problems, so.
Police and fire chief term of contracts.
I think 5 years is good.
Okay.
And that has to be spelled out in the contract.
Yeah.
So we have to continue that. then.
Continue that discussion, yeah. All right, so now we're getting into the budget presentation schedule, which will very nicely aligned and changed, and I think it flows nicer. I specifically asked the Board of Selectmen at their last meeting, hey, you need to let us know if you feel the current process is working, if you need changes. Haven't heard otherwise, because the way it currently works, I don't believe it's being followed technically by the town charter. So, at some point, either we're going to have to make a decision as to just say, never mind, or fix something, or change something, or
Or enforce something.
enforce something. Yeah. But the other part of that is also requiring that there's gonna be a budget message that's put online. Other towns are a little bit better about doing this than we are. That there's a formal document that goes to the Board of Selectmen, to the Finance Committee, that is then put online. And we kind of don't really have that in its entirety. I think what Scott will tell you is by January 1st, the budget's still so squishy that it's no point having a formal document because it's going to change so much between January and March that what he puts out in January isn't really worth it. But he has to give something to the Finance Committee in January. So, that's whatever that's called. I don't know if that's a document you want posted or, I mean, he doesn't just give them, chapters at a time. I think he gives them a whole document.
Yes, we do.
So, whatever that document is called, I don't know, that's what we want to be made
The
public.
draft.
The draft.
Yeah, no, I mean, you almost want whatever the numbers are 3 weeks before town meeting, when you have your free cash certified, and you guys, that's almost what you want to be like official.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, the budget isn't finalized until right before annual meeting.
Right,
Town meeting.
right.
Right, and I don't think we'd ever
Yeah,
expect, a budget on January 1st to not change at all before town meeting.
Right.
But they should at least have an idea, I think, of what's going to be in it.
Yeah.
But, if you watch the Finance Committee meetings now, it's still not balanced. It's still, 1.9 million and out of whack. And it's mid-February. So I guess I don't know yet what would be the best pathway to do that. Because at some point, you want to at least have a document that people can now start to read through. So even if you clearly list it in January 1st that this is a draft, this is not final, things are going to change, should that at least be part of a presentation?
Yeah.
How do they do that? Have you seen any examples of how they do that, or with the nonprofit sector, they doing a calendar year budget or is it a fiscal year budget?
Fiscal year. I've only ever seen it fiscal year, but then we do that where it's, this is considered draft until it's approved by or audited by or whatever, and we're not allowed to share it. So I'm speaking from the perspective of a board member.
Yep.
So I had more, I was privy to more information than would be made public. But as a board member, I could see things that were all drafts and not share them. And those drafts were also viewable by funders that asked for that information too. But they weren't viewable by the public until they were final.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. But again, I think,
When you think about it, that's kind of how we're doing it now.
yeah,
The players who are working these numbers and doing their due diligence know what's going on behind the scenes, and it gets voted,
And then when it
To
gets
move
to
forward.
town meeting, it takes 4 minutes to go through the budget.
that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue to talk about that. Again, I kind of want to put some pressure on the Board of Selectmen to say, hey, guys, how do you want to do this?
Now's the time.
Yeah. Time computations, this is clarifying, I hadn't noticed this, so this is really interesting. I don't understand why they would do this. If it's referred to as 7 days or less, this should be filed, in 7 days or less. That they refer secular days and not Saturdays and Sundays or legal holidays. If it's more than 7 days, then they do include weekends and holidays and Sundays.
Can't we just fix that with 7 business days?
Any idea, have you seen anything as to why that is?
Yeah. So I had 2 issues with it. One was exactly that confusion, and 2, just saying secular has the, connotation of religion, and there's too many religions to count what's secular and what's not for everybody.
That's true.
So I would, argue for business days, or even say Monday to, or whatever, bank hours or whatever people say, or federal holidays, excluded. Something that's a little bit more universal. But yeah, they're making it just be the same throughout the entire document.
Yeah. I have no, we can ask legal counsel if there was a particular reason why they did it that way, but it just, who knows? Number and gender, this was something, section 7.6. And again, it's one of those weird oddities. I don't know why it's in there. I'm just going to pull up the actual text. Words importing the singular number may extend and be applied to several persons or things. Words importing the plural number may include the singular, and words importing the masculine gender may include the feminine gender. So the singular and plural one, at the very least, is just weird because sometimes you say what you mean and you mean what you say. So I don't know if this is something that was just a leftover from 100 years ago, or if there's a reason why this is in here, or what. So I guess I just looking for guidance from town council as to why this is even here at this point.
It's probably some old legal language.
Is it just to simplify the language so that it's always inclusive? Or?
Well, it's more that the word, if you give the singular of a word, you can also apply it to the plural, and if you give the plural, it can also apply to the singular. And
yeah, no, I get that. I just was, if we're gonna keep that, then it should say like, you know, all genders rather than male, female, and just let's expand it if it has to stay.
All right, so let's continue talking about that just to figure out what the background is. Bylaw review committee, this was to have them, instead of 5 years after the adoption of the charter, it's immediately upon the completion of the charter. Just to kind of,
Because sometimes, yeah, suggested changes actually bylaw changes.
yeah, just to keep the ball rolling, I think. All right, we'll continue with that one. Resident outreach, open meeting law stuff, resident engagement. This is my pet peeve. No, yeah, it is my pet peeve. Unless I'm getting ready to be out on a limb, continue talking about it. And open meeting laws minimum standard, that's related to that as well. Board approval, board minutes approval, I think we feel there's a need to change that or update it, so we'll continue talking about that. Now we start to get into some of the more extended ones. Board minutes, access, we can continue talking about that. Board member onboarding, which I did not put Mike up to talking about that, but apparently he sees a need for it as well. So we're definitely going to continue that one. Ability to restructure committees during the middle of the year. This is apparently in the bylaws, not a charter thing. So I think what we'll probably do, if it's okay, we'll make it as a recommendation to the bylaw committee as we hand off, saying this is something you want to take a look at.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, we won't
So that's the restructure.
dwell on it anymore.
I think that allows for more flexibility in the future in between these reviews.
This was just kind of a general transparency check balances on members, board members. Wasn't anything more, it was just a suggestion that was given in one of the documents. I don't know if there's anything specific that we can take. So it's okay, I'll just like to put this one on the table for now. And
Yeah, I mean, part of the transparency thing, I think, will be the outreach engagement.
Public presentations, this was language Amanda presented about how just noting that presentations should be made available digitally and have some accommodations when necessary, closed captioning, et cetera, to whatever extent is possible. I know we can't do it for everything, but just to specify that, let's think about a general wider audience than just, a handout. So we'll continue talking about that. Ban on town employees running for office. So for instance, the idea being that do you want town employees running for office where that office has a direct oversight of their department.
Yeah, I mean, do we have to go to council? This might be prohibited by ethics, by state ethics anyway. Some of it, I don't know.
I mean, you currently can, you can't, you have to recuse yourself when talking about your department.
Okay, all right.
How do you do
That's,
it?
that's been a long-standing issue. If there's anything related to their particular department, they have to.
But like the town of Braintree has a hard no. If you're a town employee,
Yeah.
you can't run. But, you know, then again, I don't see why, if you work with DPW, why can't be on the school committee?
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no business. So, do you want to continue talking about that, or?
Yeah.
Either way. Okay. All right, this one was just simply how to improve town meeting. I think we're looking at that, but I don't think there's anything specific that we can, so I'm going to table that. Town meeting appoints emergency management director, town manager appoints emergency management director, excuse me. Do you think that's something you would want to include, or?
I think that's something that needs further discussion. I did speak with the department heads that are currently dealing with that, which is the police and the fire department. They have no specific comments on that, but it's traditionally been the police chief, and the deputy director's been the deputy police chief. So I'm still in discussions with them, but they have no really major feeling one way or the other. But I think, judging by the language, we should either make it more specific or make it more broad, whatever the feeling is.
Stipend for Board of Selectmen, currently, there is no language in the charter. So do we want to either include language either way, or make this something else that's a bylaw review? I don't particularly see a need to it. I mean, it's out of passe at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
Do they have the ability to have things reimbursed at this point if they have expenditures?
Yep.
So,
Right, so I'm going to table this unless, we can always take it back up if we
Right.
have some reason, but I don't see a reason to continue talking about it. Committee alternates and associates. This is, Conservation has associates, Zoning Board has associates, but only 3 members. It gets back to our earlier conversation about how should this all be kind of organized. So
Yes,
continue
we
talking
should.
about that. Term limits. How do people feel? Is this something to pursue, or ready to kind of move on it?
No. I think politics is normal term limits.
We'll table it for now.
the people will have their voice heard one way or the
Exactly.
other.
Residency requirement. This was something that was suggested by a Board of Selectmen member, that appointees to town boards or committees should be a full-time resident of Abington.
Does that mean that, like, they can't go to Florida for a month, or does that mean they
Probably that
can't
you
have?
probably have your registered voter in Abington too.
Yeah. Isn't that's not the law?
It's not currently.
It came up on something. Yeah.
Yes.
You can be registered to vote. Oh, I'm sorry, this isn't for an elected position, this is for like an appointed? Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
So, I mean, like, an example would be like if, let's say Ames Knoll State Park, you want to appoint somebody from Brockton
Yeah.
as a member to a committee, like, could you do that?
Or, I forgot his name, was it Ted? Who came from, or if Ted was like an advisor to this board, or like, I don't know, like for their expertise or something.
Yeah. I don't want to bring up the specific example just because it's,
I wouldn't.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, we'll continue this.
Let's continue that, yeah.
All right, Board of Selectmen approval for department heads of major hires. This is again another something that was suggested by the Board of Selectmen. Personally, I think this is why you went to the strong town manager, and there already is something in there that gives them some ability to check. I don't think we need to do anything else, but anyone else feel differently? Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, we'll table that. Same for Board of Selectmen approval for police and fire hires. You want to accuse yourself in that discussion?
Yeah, I'll step down on that one.
Again, I've seen it gets messy.
No, I don't-
very
No,
quickly.
they don't have the expertise.
Other appointed offices. This is something I think to hand to bylaw. My idea is, I think open space and parks should be one committee, and then there should be one committee that combines kind of recreation, so that's Island Grove and Strawberry Valley. So now you have an enterprise money-making recreation committee. So you take basically the enterprise fund accounts, so Island Grove, Strawberry Valley, and then if there's ever something else, that's one committee. And then parks and open space is one committee. Kind of split up the responsibilities, it might align better. But again, it's not really a charter thing, it's just kind of popped out.
So if we table it for now, it could be something that we
Yep.
just make as a recommendation, but not a charter recommendation.
And finally, who enforces violations? Because right now there is no enforcement mechanism in the charter. I'd like to do some more research to find out what other towns do. There must be something. But, okay, to continue that one?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we got a few cleared off. And I think we're close on a lot of this language as well. I think there's only a couple we still haven't really finalized language. Anybody have anything that's jumping out at them as to where they still need more discussion, answers, research? I'd be very curious. Could someone put together, like, pick 10 towns and just see how many members they have on their planning, conservation, and zoning board? Could someone do that?
I've got some time
You
right
can
now.
do that? Okay, that'd be awesome. Could someone else look at Amanda, did you start looking how many towns enforce their charter?
Yeah, I looked at as many as I could find and nobody mentioned it at all.
Okay,
Except for like saying, there would be like a casual statement of the town administrator. There was never the word enforce, really, in many of the ones that I saw. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone, so I don't have my computer on me
no, that's
to
fine.
look at the same time. But I looked at like 5 different charters at least, and it was just not a thing.
Okay. All right, so let me look at that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sending things to town council. The things where we have a good sense of. Only because I don't want to take a vote on something and then get message back from town council that you can't do it this way, and then you have to take another vote anyway. So send it to her or him and get feedback, and then that way we can finalize language and kind of go from there. That sound like a plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then some of the stuff we haven't nailed down yet, for instance, we'll have sewer commission, hopefully comes to our next meeting, learn more about what they're doing and why they should stick around. Let's see if we get Andy Burbine here for our next meeting, see what his lessons learned were. We'll see what you learned in your research.
Mhm.
That's a pretty good start. All right. Let's talk about next meetings. March 23rd.
That's fine.
Good.
Good.
Maybe not.
Not for me, but I will make accommodations if possible. If not, you'll have my homework in time.
Well, I would like to just make sure that we get everybody here
Mhm.
as much as possible. What about the 16th?
16th is good for me.
Good for me.
It's fine.
Thank you, sorry.
Prior review, 6 o'clock. All right, so next meeting will be March 16th at 6 PM. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Anything else to discuss before we call it an evening?
Move to adjourn.
Second,
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
I
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.